Citizens of Reject Nation, I have seen all of those comments of, oh, Coy likes everything, and he just... There are things I don't like, so I thought today we would go through the 10, nay, 11 worst or perhaps just most disappointing superhero movies of all time. Before we get to that, please do leave a like, subscribe, hit that bell to get notified. Maybe we'll do a best of list. Maybe you want to get notified of that. Maybe you need to hit that bell. And also, please do follow me on TikTok for all sorts of comic book goodness. I broke that Matt Reeves news before a lot of outlets because I have my finger on the pulse and I'm very excited. Speaking of finger on the pulse, let's talk bad superhero movies. Let's go. I had to include this one on the list, making it 11. It was going to be a top 10 video, but it's top 11 because I remember being so bummed because I defended Daredevil so hard. And then they made a spinoff called Elektra, and it's just not great. It's not that Jennifer Garner wasn't impassioned. It's not that they didn't try to tie it in a special way, but it felt like the beginning of Fox not really knowing what to do with the shared universe it looked like they were starting to build. There was a long time ago going to be a Secret Wars-esque combo of Fantastic Four, Daredevil, and this whole giant thing at Fox. I think Elektra was the movie that stopped that. And I think that it's a shame that it set back female-led films, a shared universe of films, and superhero films in one foul swoop by just not being what it needed to be. There were incredible things to me coming out of that era because they were building to what we got to now, but Elektra, I think, was a step back. I didn't think it worked, and Jennifer Garner deserved better.
Do we need movies with women?
I think, I mean, they're like 51% of us. Should they be on screen, Greg?
Isn't that 51% the weaker percent?
I mean, I can't have a baby, and sometimes I get a tummy cramp, and I call out of work, and they have cramps every month, and babies come out of them. I've got a more modern one, and this one's on the list because I always want indie comics to do well. I love when Marvel and DC do well. I love when Image does well, but I really want the indie companies to rise up too, and Valiant was starting a whole universe off of Bloodshot. The thing with Bloodshot is they made it a very milquetoast neutral cookie cutter. It felt like it was a superhero movie made in the 90s in a bad way. You know what? I'm going to say the words right now, and it's going to make this whole video. It did wrong what I think Morbius did right. I like that Morbius wanted to be a 90s vampire thriller, and it committed to that. I feel like Bloodshot wanted to be a 90s action movie and didn't commit. Instead, it made a neutral thing that happened, and you didn't engage with any of the characters, and it kind of wasted the launch of a universe, and that's always sad because I really wanted more out of it, and I wanted to see more of this world, so it's a bummer that the launch was neutral. There's some positive Morbius right there. You heard me. Come at me, internet. We got to talk about a movie that always makes the worst of list that is getting some love lately, which I love that it's getting some love, but it doesn't negate the negatives, right? There's a movie, Spider-Man 3, and that's a Sandman movie. That's a third Goblin movie. That is a movie that deals with the beautiful arc of Harry Osborn while dealing with the beautiful arc of Peter Parker. Unfortunately, Sony was dead set on having Venom in this movie, and that if you look at the things that don't work in Spider-Man 3, it's largely all Venom based, whether it's the dancing, whether it's Venom himself, whether it's the choice to do Ultimate Venom, which is like more of a Peter Parker, Eddie Brock parallel choice. All of those things that don't work are largely by throwing the kitchen sink at it. The Sandman stuff is incredible, but we don't remember the Sandman stuff. I do, but a lot of people don't. The pathos of Harry Osborn and all of those things are incredible, but we don't get that because we remember dancing. So for me, Spider-Man 3 makes the most disappointing list, not because the movie itself is bad, but because we went from Spider-Man 2 to Spider-Man 3 because major studio powers that be didn't trust someone who had just made them like $1 billion to make the movie he wanted. And I would have loved to have seen Spider-Man 4. I would have loved to have seen what we could have gotten. You guys know I'm outspoken as like Tobey Maguire's not exactly how I see Spider-Man, and that's okay. A lot of people do. I think of Andrew Garfield as Spider-Man when I think of Spider-Man, but even with that little caveat, I would have loved to have seen a more mature evolution of Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man like we eventually got in No Way Home, and I think we would have gotten that sooner if they let Sam Raimi make the Sandman Green Goblin third installment the way he wanted to, and that's always going to be a what could have been. And I would love Black Cat and Vulture in 4. Anyway, 3 is disappointing because of the what could have been in it all. I want you to take the director of one of the best James Bond movies ever, Hard Stop, and I want you to tell me in the past that he's going to make a superhero movie. I want you to then tell me he's going to cast one of your favorite favorite actors. I also want you to tell me that in the future, one of the supporting players in this is going to be integral, directing and acting and reshaping comedy in the modern sense of culture. I also want you to tell me that one of my favorite actors and a person I admire very much in how they handle themselves on and off camera is going to meet the love of his life on this film set, and they're going to have beautiful children together, and they're going to be very happy. And I'm going to go, well, at least that last thing happened because the rest didn't work for me. Green Lantern is a movie. And I wish that it was a movie that made Hal Jordan a household name. I wish it was a movie that allowed the Green Lantern Corps to be as big of a thing as Flash or Batman or Superman. But unfortunately, the team behind the movie made a lot of interesting choices to make it so a character that invents things through sheer willpower, as played by one of the most charming, charismatic, funny men on the planet, somehow is both boring in a way that's like, what's the next scene gonna be? And that's interesting because there's so much going on, and look like it doesn't understand what it's trying to be. There are scenes where he invents stuff out of his mind that he could have done something either way simpler or way more complicated. The middle ground of like a weird racetrack, like what is happening here? He's a jet fighter. There's a lot of logical leaps, and there's a lot of mustache twirling and villainy, and Mark Strong is way better than that. And I don't know, it's an odd series of tones, I think, is my issue. I feel like that movie is about 10 tones too many. If it was 1 or 2 tones, if it blended worlds better, and if it landed in that space cop Green Lantern-ness, it could have been a special thing. It had a lot of special parts, but I think there's a reason we needed Deadpool.
Good luck, Coy!
Okay.
Good luck, Coy!
I'm afraid. I'm so scared. All right, my next one. It's a recent Batman movie. I'm uncomfortable. Batman vs. Superman. I said it out loud. I said the quiet part out loud. I do not enjoy Batman vs. Superman. Hey, have you seen the Ultimate Edition? I have. I have seen the Ultimate Edition. It is a 3-hour version of the one I saw. There is more merit, absolutely. There are subplots and things that make it better, much like Daredevil with all the Coolio stuff. But that doesn't make either A or B film that I hold these things to the standard to. The reason I'm harsh on comic book films is because there's 70 years of mythology often on so many properties. There's so much backstory. There's so much that you already have done for you. And yes, these are archetypal characters that you're adapting. Yes, it should not be a translation. But when you give Batman a gun, when you have Batman murdering innocent people on the street, when you have Batman deciding to not be the world's greatest detective, but to just be a brute object against an alien that he decides to not understand. There's a great reason in the comic books Batman and Superman fight. It takes issues. It takes journeys. It takes us knowing these characters. In the movie, I did not understand why Batman decided he made Lex Luthor-esque choices where he was just like, oh, this thing is other. I don't like it. I don't trust it. Bro, you dress like a bat. You think you're normal? Like, it doesn't work if both characters don't have the integrity that they do with arcs and buildup. Not only that, but it hurts Henry Cavill's Superman. We didn't get more Superman because we get him in one movie, a great movie. I enjoy Man of Steel. His sequel, it should have been Man of Steel 2. It shouldn't have been, let's bring in Batman so we can jump to the Justice League in one more movie. We literally went from step 1 to step 7 to step 17. That's not fair to Henry Cavill's Superman. So this movie sidelines Superman after one movie. It makes Batman's whole arc not make sense. The whole Martha thing, I could do a separate video about. We won't go there. It's just a very common name in the 60s. It made sense they both had that. But we make Lex Luthor into, and the casting choice making it much more obvious, the Sorkin generation is logical to modernize a character. That is fine adjacent. The rest doesn't line up with that kind of modernization, nor does it work for the archetypes that these characters are, nor does the God element that Zack Snyder does so very well translate to any of the choices these characters make. Also, it's kind of boring. And that's the worst part of all for me, is that these characters that are larger than life, that we've loved for years, not only get undermined, but we get one of the best Batman sequences of all time. We get the coolest warehouse fight sequence. One of the moments I think of with Batman, and then we wait for other things to happen. And I know there's going to be Zack Snyder fans, which I love. I love the world of Zack Snyder overall. I love his way of seeing things. I love his directing style. I think he's done a lot for suicide awareness. He's done a lot for charity. He's a good person, and so is his wife. They're fantastic. But the fandom is going to come at me and say that, like, I'm not smart enough to understand the nuance, or that's his interpretation. There's a lot of things the fandom does, and I love that you're so passionate. But you being so angry at people that don't enjoy what you enjoy makes me enjoy the characters less, and it makes me not want to try to like this movie. So please understand, I always try. Please understand this is my take on these characters, and please understand this movie wasn't for me, but I do think there's a lot of reasons that other people don't like it too. And that's not to say anything disparaging against Zack Snyder, and Ben Affleck's one of my favorite Batmans, and Henry Cavill is Superman. And that's why I hold it to such high esteem and why I needed it to be more.
Get the fuck out of my home. Go ahead.
I said it!
Go. This video is terrible.
BVS! I'm sorry. I'm sorry, fans of BVS. Can't kill Jimmy Olsen off screen. You can't do it. All right, you lovelies. This next one has been disowned both by the director and its star, and I think most of the studio doesn't work there anymore. I'm gonna let you know how I feel about Batman and Robin. You give me George Clooney, who is an inherently great Bruce Wayne, and then you give him bat nipples as Batman, you expect him to stay afloat. That's not gonna happen. You give me a great performance in one movie with Jerry O'Connell as Robin, and then you don't let him be the boy wonder in the next movie. He still has the same arc. What is that choice? And then Alicia Silverstone, fresh off of Clueless, and they neuter her character. She just shows up to be like somehow both a damsel in distress and a superheroine because all of her dialogue is like, hee hee, and it doesn't let Alicia Silverstone be Batgirl. And most of all, perhaps the craziest thing is Joel Schumacher is one of my favorite directors of all time. Lost Boys is one of the greatest spectacle films ever made, and Phone Booth shows what he can do contained. He can do both things. Batman is just neon lights and selling McDonald's toys, and they let you know that. They accept that. He takes out a Bat credit card at the beginning. They make Bane a mindless henchman. Bane is an intellectual equal to Batman, and they make him a thumb, and then they make Mr. Freeze a series of jokes. I think Uma Thurman knew what movie she was in. She's doing some strange transatlantic accent where she's just having a good time. I feel like they made both Adam West's Batman and a commercial, and none of it worked. And let's talk about Arnold Schwarzenegger with the puns. Arnold is an incredible actor with a very specific ness. I don't know why they decided that specific ness was only gonna have puns. Mr. Freeze is a love story. His wife and him is this passionate tale of being a villain for the sake of saving your love. I remember Nora Freeze in that movie. I don't remember him loving her. I vaguely remember at the end some icy tears. It hurts the characters, it hurts the actors, it hurt the director, and it hurt us. And it's long. Got to include this one on the list because I actually remember almost leaving the theater, and I love the character of Jonah Hex. I am a huge Josh Brolin fan. I am a big Megan Fox fan, and I saw this in theaters once. I don't remember anything except wanting to walk out, and I don't feel that way about a lot of things, so I might revisit it one day, because maybe it's excellent, but as far as my memory serves, not for me. All right, next up, short and sweet, Catwoman. Now, this is a movie I only saw once. I saw it in theaters, and what's interesting about Catwoman is retroactively it's gotten worse, having never seen it again. I vaguely remember a basketball sequence. I vaguely remember Halle Berry trying, but what's interesting is there's sequences post-Oscar win Halle Berry that I remember aggressively bad acting, and so that hurts for Halle Berry, but also, this was the movie that was supposed to spin off of Tim Burton's Catwoman. This was supposed to be Michelle Pfeiffer in Catwoman, got delayed for years, and this is what they deliver us. So it's kind of insulting to both Oscar winner Halle Berry and the entire Tim Burton Batman mythos and the character of Catwoman. So even though I've only seen it once, this movie just hurts in general. All right, let's talk about the one. Let's talk about the one, maybe the one that rules them all. The Fantastic Four of it all. I can't fathom a movie that started as sure of itself that then had a year gap and then lost itself more. This movie I heard only rough things about. This is 2015's Josh Trank Fantastic Four. And it started strong enough that I was like, oh, I think people were just wanting to assume negativity. It started in 2015 again, is deep MCU, deep into the DC film universe, deep into our modern world. So I was like, maybe them trying something new just isn't working. No. There's this moment where there's this 1 year gap and the movie comes back as an entirely different movie. They never really explain a lot of things. They cut a lot of the things from the Fantastic Four that we love, like the Fantastic Car we know they shot. They don't let the actors, who are talented actors, get to be the characters they've shaped. And the dialogue, there's some of the most clunky dialogue that even Michael B. Jordan can't save. Even Miles Teller, who makes a movie about drumming, one of the most riveting action films of all time, along with J.K. Simmons. There's nothing that Kate Mara can do. There's nothing Jamie Bell can do. There's nothing anyone can do in this movie to make it work. And another round of wasting Dr. Doom. Toby Cabell is right up there with Andy Serkis as far as what makes the Planet of the Apes movie tick, along with obviously director Matt Reeves. Toby Cabell can't make Dr. Doom work in this because they hodgepodge a bunch of different storylines and don't let him play. A lot of this movie is done well in pre-production and a lot of the ideas deliver, and then the movie itself felt like the studio and the director made two different movies simultaneously, and they released a hodgepodge of both. The X-Men movies are really interesting in that some of the best comic book movies of all time come out of the world of X-Men. You got your X2, your Logan, your Days of Future Past, but you've also got X-Men Apocalypse. A lot of people think Dark Phoenix is worse than X-Men Apocalypse, and I can acknowledge where they're coming from. I absolutely see that that movie is a rough time, but for me, how do you abuse Oscar Isaac's time like they did in X-Men Apocalypse? They covered one of the most talented actors in so much silicone and face makeup that he couldn't move. Apocalypse is one of the most terrifying characters in the X-Men mythology. He grows to great sizes. He's got this incredible legacy of evolving. They didn't use Apocalypse. Apocalypse is just a dude from Egypt in this movie, and it's Oscar Isaac not getting to be Oscar Isaac, not getting to use his talent, and it brings back Bryan Singer, who, personal things aside, is someone that was associated with the X-Men for quite some time, someone that had shaped the world of the X-Men, and it felt like he forgot how to make an X-Men movie. At no point did I feel like I was watching X-Men. I felt more than ever that I was watching Bryan Singer's Band of Mutants, and that's okay if it fits the narrative, but this movie, I only saw it once, and that's the only X-Men movie I've only seen once, and I don't remember a lot going on in it because it never felt like it brought me in. It also wasted Storm, and there's just no excuse in wasting Storm a second time because this is bringing in a new Storm, and it still didn't work. To me, the reason it's worse than Dark Phoenix is the villain and the waste of Oscar Isaac, and this cast is incredible, so you can't have James McAvoy, Jennifer Lawrence, Michael Fassbender, Oscar Isaac, Nicholas Hoult, Ty Sheridan, Sophie Turner, Evan Peters, and not use them, and they somehow managed. Nightcrawler was fun though, so that was nice. Also, the last 10 seconds are the only time we've ever seen the X-Men in their suits. How do you give us a whole movie and then give us X-Men in the suits as a tease to get ripped? It hurts. All right, first up, we got to talk about one of the all-time most discussed how did this happen movies, and that is X-Men Origins Wolverine. Now, this movie does have some merit, but when you look at it overall, how does a movie manage to waste one of the best castings of all time? Hugh Jackman as Wolverine is incredible, and this movie actually ended up tanking other movies. There was going to be an X-Men Origins Magneto, which turned into a lot of the coolest sequences with Michael Fassbender in another movie. This movie had and wasted not just Ryan Reynolds as Deadpool, which if things hadn't worked out down the line, we would have lost one of the great comic book movies, but it also wasted and never got to come to fruition Taylor Kitsch as Gambit. This movie had a crazy cast, a real odd series of choices. Kevin Durant is like an in-shape dude. They cast him as Blob. Will.i.am's here. Why? We don't know. There's a sequence where there's snicting, but it's like the worst CGI I've ever... It looks like 90s CGI in a movie in the 2000s. And the worst part for me was the movie sacrificed story. At no point was I invested in the Liev Schreiber Wolverine relationship, except in the opening credits. The opening credits of this movie are some of the most beautiful opening credits I've ever seen in my life, and they tell the story I wanted X-Men Origins Wolverine to be. The origin of Wolverine is just the credits, and the rest is this odd hodgepodge of Weapon X and these other mutants, and they tried to make it a team movie while also being a Wolverine movie. And the thing that hurts me is it sacrificed comic book integrity, acting integrity, and story integrity for a lot of really flashy sequences that they didn't even seem to finish. So I look for the best, and this one, you have to look pretty hard. This one hurts. All right, you lovelies, this was a rare experience of me being somewhat negative. Is not how I like to be. You guys know I love art, but I also do think that if we're going to hold things to a certain standard, sometimes we need to look at the negative in order to see the positive more positively. So these are movies that I don't think are worthless, that I don't think are bad, you shouldn't be mad at, but I do think they are disappointing. And on a scale of 1 to 100, something has to be in that bottom. So that's what this list was. Discuss below. Come at me with your BVS hot takes. Find me on TikTok so you can yell at me. If you yell at me and don't subscribe, it still does drive the algorithm. So yell at me on TikTok is what I'm asking. That's all I ask. All right, we'll be back with more videos just like this. I appreciate each and every one of you rejects. Like, subscribe, comment. Let me know what of these you think wasn't disappointing, and let me know if there was any I missed. Talk to you soon.